Hey guys, Clover here. Wanted to go over some of the things that have been happening in the smart contract space, and I'm going to go over my some of the projects that I've been getting in and give you guys a little bit of an update on that. And another topic I really kind of wanted to get into is kind of strategy. A lot of people have been kind of messaging me about strategy and when to buy, when to sell, when to reinvest, maybe when to get out. And wanted to kind of go over also some of the bots and things like that, because I know when I initially was kind of looking into some of these things on DApp Radar, kind of the big thing that kind of stands out is the daily active users on these smart contract games, which is why right now we're seeing 4 of the top 6 decentralized apps on the Ethereum network are these new smart contract games. And there's several more that have been popping up. And so I kind of wanted to go over those. So first I'm going to start off with just kind of how things have been performing for me for some of the contracts that I've been in. And I'm going to start off with the Dividend smart contracts. So as I mentioned the other day, I got out of 5 different contracts, kind of consolidated down to proof of week hands, CG Now, and Gandhi, and those are still doing fairly well. In terms of comparison to kind of some, at least the other contracts. You can see here that right now, like CG Now, I had about 0.11 ETH that I made in that contract. Not a whole lot. I've been getting a little bit in proof of week hands, but not much. Gandhi paid out a little bit more. There was a little bit of a dump in Gandhi. So, $160 just on those 3 contracts, 0.22 Ethereum. And so wanted to kind of go over those a little bit. The volume has been dropping in all of those contracts, and it's really it's kind of switched around. Like the CG Now contract has been around 1 ETH, at least that's what's being reported on the DApp Radar. Kind of missed out doing this the other day. Gandhi really dropped, so we were kind of seeing this kind of in the teens, maybe in the 20 or whatever, and it's really kind of dropped. There's been a little bit of a sell-off. There's probably more volume here. There was about 30 ETH that exited the contract that day. Proof of week hands, it's been somewhat consistent. It's coming up a little bit, but not a whole lot of volume. The balance, again, continuing to fall, but it's really kind of slowed down, not as much. The CG Now contract has fallen quite a bit, down to 24. Gandhi, as I mentioned before, as it looks like it kind of peaked, and kind of got up to it looks like it was 162 at one point, and then kind of dropped down, came back up, and looks like it's in a little bit of a downward trend right now. So my initial plan for May was to get into or get diversified into a lot of these contracts and just kind of document how those have been going. And that was my plan, is I was going to stay in these contracts, and I was just going to basically really kind of looking at this as a long-term play. And so that kind of gets into the topic of at least when to buy, sell, and reinvest for those games or those contracts. The trend that we've kind of been seeing is you'll see some of these contracts will kind of peak at a certain point, and then they'll just steadily kind of decline until there's really no volume. There's not a whole lot of daily active users, and the balances in those have really been dropping. And I think potentially for those contracts, my strategy has kind of been to stay in roughly about the 50th position in the top token holder positions. I guess I haven't been moving around too much, because basically the idea with those contracts is kind of to get in at a certain point, and then basically kind of hold and just pull out dividends. That's one strategy. And that's kind of what I was planning on doing. for these new smart contract games, the crypto idle games, I don't know if that's necessarily a good strategy to kind of go in, big at first and then just kind of pull out. And part of that is because of kind of the inflationary nature of those contracts, which I'm going to get into here in a little bit. I've been charting some different things and wanted to show that to you guys. The end goal is to, kind of invest and kind of get to a point where you can at least get your, the capital that you put in back, and then, essentially you're in the profit. And for a lot of the kind of the smaller contracts, like I only put in a little bit, maybe like a half an ETH, but most of those, I wasn't in long enough to basically see those turn green. And so I think for the dividend smart contracts, like I'm seeing a good strategy right now is to kind of pick, a couple of maybe your top those top contracts with the plan to kind of stay in them and maybe adjust your position slightly depending on the Ethereum that's in those contracts. That seems to be something that's a good barometer in terms of the performance of those contracts, is how much ETH is coming into those contracts. There hasn't been a whole lot that have gotten over 100, and so I'll show you a little bit of the history of that here with the balances. And so this is kind of going back. You can see that the big one, obviously proof of weak hands, which is has been in the 5,000s. For the most part, most of these other ones, there's only been a few that have been over 100. CG Now, Proof of Devon James, ETH Phoenix, and Gandhi. Those 4 contracts. However, they are continuing to decline now. It's really just Proof of Devon James, and I haven't looked into ETH Phoenix. Let's see where ETH Phoenix is. I know that this has been dropping down quite a bit, and I got out, as I mentioned yesterday. It's just it just really is not performing, and so that has to be something. Yeah, you can see here still has 132 in the contract, 3 daily active users, no volume. So there's ETH Phoenix was the original. Like a lot of people want to say like Proof of Weak Hands was the original dividend smart contract. It was ETH Phoenix. Like that was around a little bit before. Proof of Weak Hands had a little bit of a kind of I guess a better marketing strategy or whatnot, and it was much more adapted, and the code is different. So a lot of people were creating a lot of these clones, and the clones basically saturated the space, and a lot of them just pumped and dumped, and that was basically the trend with a lot of those types of clones. And so I don't know right now if you're going to see those types of contracts really come back and perform and do over maybe 100 ETH in the balance there. So I'm not sure if that's going to be like a good game plan right now, and that's why right now the trend is coming into these idle games, which was highly profitable for me the other day. Like I was able to get at least get my initial investment back in shrimp farm game, and so I want to show that to you guys. So I mean, basically, it only took 2 days. I put in 4.18 ETH. You can see right there, I put 4.18 ETH into the shrimp game. I put in 3.5 into the ant game, and then I put 1 into the Pepe one and the farm one the other day. And so like I'm tracking this a little bit differently now. So as I mentioned, with these ones, they hyperinflate. And so what I'm documenting here is with the ETH shrimp game, if you take the price per 0.01 ETH and you see like how much 0.01 ETH is going to give you in terms of shrimp or eggs, those are continuing to hyperinflate. So like, this was just the other day when I first got in, it was 300 or so, and this was the first time I pulled out. It already went to 460, and you can see like it's basically hyperinflated 10x in like 2 days. So I've been pulling out, and this is the strategy you should probably be staying with, is just to pull out, because like if you leave that balance in there, it's going to diminish. So like say you have like half an ETH worth of rewards or dividends, however you want to look at it, in your balance. If this basically hyperinflates, say you had like half an ETH here at 1,500, you left that in there for 24 hours, that half an ETH just turned into a quarter of an ETH. And so like these types of games are somewhat going to require you to be a little bit more involved in the platform, at least right now. And so that might not be the best thing for some people that aren't able to do that. Like if you're not able to kind of check in with your account, fairly often, like I would say like maybe every between 4 to 8 hours or so, just kind of check in and see kind of where it's at, and at least maybe just get in there and just do a quick withdrawal with whatever you have in there. That's that's kind of where it's at. So the other metric that I'm kind of looking into, and I just started doing this, was I'm taking the a couple of times I'm taking like the balance, and then I'm taking I'm taking taking the balance, and let's see here, how do I explain this? I'm trying to basically hold on one sec. The contract. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. So here we go. So this is the daily active users right here, and so I'm taking the daily active users and the ETH in the contract, and I'm getting a ratio. So I'm getting like right now the ratio right here with the ETH shrimp farm is like 71, and this one is like 60. So that this is like a ratio right here. You can take a look at the Ether anthills. So again, like I'm taking like there's 13 ETH in the contract right here. This was the daily active users, and this is the ratio. Now you'll see that Pepe Farm's a little bit lower. You can see like the daily active users, but the fish farm is just ridiculous. So you can see like basically it's like at 700. So I put an ETH into the fish farm at like 1 o'clock yesterday, and within about 4 to 6 hours, that 1 ETH turned into like 0.2 ETH, and my dividend returnings are like minimal. It's like very, very low. And so the reason for that, if you're taking a look at DApp Radar, and you're looking at these just high daily active user counts, there's been a lot of discussions in the Discord channels about bots on these particular contracts. Like these numbers aren't necessarily entirely accurate. There's a lot of because you're able to get like a free account with like 300 or so, which is I think every single one of those 4. There's been 300 that you can get in, and you can get like a free account. Now, from a marketing standpoint, that actually kind of works a little bit well, at least initially, because the daily active user count's real high. It kind of pops on the radar with DApp Radar. You get guys on YouTube talking about it because it's kind of a new thing that kind of demands some attention. But you can see like this fish farm, is there's only like 3 ETH in the contract, and there's all of these daily active users. So it's completely saturated with bots. Now, the bots can't necessarily be tracked, or it's hard to like say like how many of those are real users and how many of them are bots. So you could essentially do the bots like manually. So you could open up like 20 different free accounts. You could have 300 in there, and you could go through all of those accounts, and you could compound them. You could you could withdraw. You could write a script if you're a developer and you know how to do that. You could potentially write a script to be able to kind of pull ETH out of those contracts. And I think that's what's happening at kind of like maybe a smaller scale with some of these smaller contracts. So there's not a whole lot of ETH in Anthills, Fish Farm, or Pepe Farm, which are basically the three I got into yesterday. You can see like total, it's like 20 or 22 ETH or so, but the daily active users are very high. It's a little bit different with Ether Shrimp Farm. Now, Ether Shrimp Farm was the first one. And so that's important to kind of note. It was the first one that came up. It's no longer new on some of these, but the ETH Shrimp Farm has been the most profitable for me right now. And I think that it's important to kind of, keep an eye on the balance in those contracts. And one of the ways you can do that is I have a link in the description below where you can look at some of the graphs of the balances. So this is the balance of the shrimp game. And so you can see like it's had a little bit of history where, it came up to like, 60 or so, dropped down to, 30, came up to about 80 or so, and is kind of steadily declining. And so it's a hard kind of graph to interpret, and it's hard to basically know when to buy, when to sell, when to reinvest. But there's a couple of different things, you could look at. The encouraging sign is when you see Ethereum come into those contracts, where you're seeing that have an effect on the price of the eggs. So if you have a particular balance, you have so many eggs here, right? And say somebody comes in and they put in like 10 ETH into the contract. Right now, like these would sell for, 0.01. Potentially, like if the contract balance comes up, that's gonna, raise the price of those eggs, and you would be able to sell that for more, since there is, there's more ETH in the contract. At least that's the way I understand it. But these have been, like fairly profitable for me. So it's high risk. So it's still kind of early to say like how these are going to perform long term. I think right now one of the big red flags for me is just kind of the ETH balances, and also how much are these contracts being drained by bots, and is that going to be something that's going to be like something that's going to slowly go away. Like one of the things I'm looking at is, since we're seeing the free accounts, there's not as much of an incentive anymore, because like if you were able to get like 300 in a free account, like that would have bought you like 0.01 ETH, which is like $7. So you could just kind of do that over and over and over again, and potentially, like if you're somebody where that is rewarding enough, I mean, potentially you could make maybe like $100 an hour if you were just kind of doing this over and over and over. And if you were able, or had the know-how to create a bot or a script to be able to do that, then there's an incentive to do that. But you can see now that it's hyperinflated to, I mean, last time I withdrew was like 37.89. You can see now it's like, 39.20. So it's hyperinflating, and those free accounts are worth less and less and less. And the bots that are, kind of performing in the background are going to be competing with gas prices now. And so the gas prices are going to deter some of those bots from kind of running, especially if they're kind of, making like microtransactions, because at a certain point, you basically, make a break even by running those. So what I'm thinking is potentially going to happen, maybe in like the next week, is that we might see like the daily active users may decrease a little bit as some of those, maybe those bots like come offline because they're not as profitable to run those. And you might see a little bit more stability in the contracts. But I still think it's kind of early with Anthills, with Pepe Farm, and the Fish Farm one. I'm not really recommending that one right now. Like, I think that one is so flooded with bots that it's basically borderline scam right now. I think like I put in an ETH, and it's going to take me probably a really long time at this rate to get that ETH back. Where basically then I'm playing with house money. I mean, the amount that I'm making here is just is really minimal. And like an ETH bought me, basically 7,400 because I had like 300 new. Like now, if I put in an ETH, that's 95,000, right? And that's just one day. So, perhaps, maybe it was just a mistake on my part of maybe getting into that contract too early. Whereas, the other contracts that we were seeing, the Dividend smart contracts, it paid to be in those as early as possible. With some of these newer games that are coming up, that might not necessarily be the case. And so if I were to put a little bit of Ethereum and I wanted to put it into some of these contracts right now, I would basically weight it by the amount of Ethereum that is in those contracts. So I would recommend looking at the shrimp farm game as number one. I think that I would probably put the Pepe farm number two and the Ant Hills one number three, and I wouldn't get into fish farm right now. And a lot of these other ones, like they're gonna take some time to prove themselves because like there's tons of them, right? Let's just kind of look at them. There's the chicken farm, Ether Cartel, Crocs farm, but look at the balances here. Like Ether Cartel has nothing in there. This has got nothing in there. This chicken farm, like they don't have any ETH in these balances. They don't really have a very high daily active users, but these are probably a lot of bots that are in here. It might be the majority, and it's not a whole lot compared to some of these other ones that kind of came onto the scene. But you can see like the fish farm one's got like 3.5 ETH in there. But all of these, kind of bots that are running in the background. So those ones are going to be, those ones are going to be, probably not good ones to get into, at least right now. But it's still new. It's still kind of a new thing. Like, I mean, you've got, how many new ones do we have today? 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like 4 new ones. And I know there's a few other ones, like people have been kind of spamming me on Discord to want to get into. Right now, like I think that it's kind of best to kind of maybe sit on the sidelines a little bit, but I think that the shrimp farm game is one that's paying out pretty well. And like, the dividend games that I was doing, so just to give you a little bit of an, example, like in a 24-hour period, I made, a little bit less than a quarter ETH, at least on these contracts. I have way less invested in these contracts, but like I'm making quite a bit here in I mean like just today. So like I woke up like early this morning, kind of woke up and I kind of withdrew what was in there, and then there was a few other times, and just like I guess 5 times already this morning I withdrew. How much is that? So just this morning I've made 0.76 ETH in just that contract, and I had 4.18 ETH invested. I've already gotten my initial seed capital back. I'm at 4.2, so just now, like I'm in the profit on that one. So I'm considering doubling my production in what I have in here. So I have currently I have 150,000, and like if I want to, I don't even want to put like an ETH in. Like, look, you can see like an ETH is just going to get you like, I mean, I could basically triple my production by putting in another ETH. But I would say like, if I were to put in 0.5 ETH or so, that's not even really. Let's do 3.5. Let's maybe 4. Oh, come on. It's not messing me. Yeah, okay. So I could put in 0.4 ETH. Like and part of that, it also correlates to, basically this inflationary model that we have here, because it's basically gone up 10x. So when I put in 4 ETH 2 days ago, now I can put in 0.4 ETH and have the same type of production. Whether or not that inflationary model is going to continue to rise is really, you know, it's going to be something we're going to have to see here, you know, moving forward. But you know, that's happening where you're kind of getting. I'll show you basically just the inflation on these contracts. So in 2 days, it's got you know, the inflation's gone up 10x on that one. Not quite as much in ETH and Hills. There's a lot more daily active users in there, not a whole lot of ETH in there. So I'm wondering if that's going to be one that's going to that's overbotted is kind of one way of looking at it. And one of the factors I'm looking at is this ratio right here. So you can see like it's a much lower. This is the ratio of daily active users to ETH in the contract. And so like this one being much higher, you want a low number, if that makes sense. So this number is basically 3 times, you know, what we're seeing in the ETH shrimp farm. And part of that's because there's a lot more ETH in that contract. You know, again, though, like taking a look at this, you know, the balance in this contract, it's been a little bit, you know, steady. Like, are we going to see this downtrend continue? Or is it going to get to a point where maybe the hyperinflation that we're seeing may slow down a little bit because the bots are going to essentially start pulling out? So those bots, if they stop becoming profitable and they're not producing kind of this, it doesn't make sense to run them essentially because of high gas prices and things like that, then we may see that some of the people that are starting to invest, starting to get in there, and you might see the ETH balance grow. So what I would look at and kind of what I'm planning on doing is just kind of lightly reinvesting into some of the ones that are they're doing well right now, and I'm kind of putting them in that order, like Shrimp Farm number 1. Pepe right now number 2, and it's very similar to the Anthills game, and I'm basing that on basically this ratio, because the Pepe Farm one, it's got a ratio of 172. So this one is ridiculous. It's like 700, and so like this one is, you know, fishy. No pun intended. I guess pun intended. Let me check on the chat a little bit. Ether Shrooms, no bots, no free accounts. Yeah, I think we're going to see a few of these contracts come out where they're going to fix some of these issues and problems, because like they get like marketing by, you know, being in the top 10 on DApp radar. So people are, you know, if you're monitoring that on a daily basis or you're looking into that, you're going to see that and you say, hey, what is this? Let me take a look into it. And you know, it's like, you know, that's a marketing strategy right there. I think the next step is going to be like no free account. Like if you had these contracts with no free accounts, I don't think you're going to see the ETH balance drained as much, because you're going to actually have to invest into other accounts and then have those bots scripted to be running, you know, different things. So there's going to be, I guess, less incentive. It's still possible. You can still run bots on any of these, but I'm going to be getting into that a little bit more. I was doing a little research on some of the videos, and I mentioned that I'm going to be taking you know, some courses and things like that, and kind of learning about scripting. I'd really like to get into learning Solidity a little bit. I've got a few developer friends here that here in Vietnam that know it pretty well. One of the guys has got like a team of like 15 guys that are working on a bunch of different projects, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm seeing things right now. Any BCCX news? No, I haven't heard anything. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know how they would, like, you know, are they going to make an announcement on Twitter or, you know, Telegram, or, you know, are they just going to launch it? You know, or are they going to launch it? I have no idea. You know, again, like one of the things I was saying is I'm wondering if some of it has to do, well, a lot of it has to do with kind of like the legal stuff that's going on right now, and maybe to see how that's going to get all sorted out, but also the price of Bitcoin, Because if you remember, like, you know, we saw Bitcoin come all the way up to like 20,000 in December. Hasn't rebounded to kind of those levels again. We're seeing, you know, Bitcoin at 8,200. You know, this was almost touched 10,000 not too long ago. Has dropped down to like, you know, so it's, you can see like it came up and it's kind of dropped down and leveled out here a little bit. So what, you know, one of the theories that I had was if we saw Bitcoin rise up to, you know, some of those same levels, maybe, you know, it's been a long time since we've had an all-time high. So we're kind of in this kind of valley. Maybe if Bitcoin reaches an all-time high again, and if they're sitting on all that Bitcoin, maybe they come back, refund all the users, try to make everything right, and then launch the exchange. I don't know. Or maybe nothing happens. June, September, November, good crypto months. Yeah, that's kind of been a historical trend. I'd agree with that. What's your take on PoWH? I like PoWH. I want to invest more in it. Like, you know, one of the things is like I've been doing a lot of these, you know, getting into these Ethereum smart contracts on DApp Radar. You know, potentially, like, I've been spending a lot of time getting into these just because it's kind of been a trending topic. I potentially could have made a lot more money just, you know, trading in the altcoin market, but PoWH has been a great one. The one thing I really like about PoWH is that it's trading pretty heavily on the decentralized exchanges, and like its function as a point of sale is a very intriguing one. But yeah, I mean, again, it's up another, you know, 9.5, 10% today. Looks like they removed the market cap. See the markets. Yeah, we can see IDX, Bancor, DDEX. I don't know some of these other ones. I don't know Hotbit, CoinNest, CoinBean, TideX. I kind of recognize some of those. It's trading pretty good. I'm taking a look at the charts. You know, had I gotten into this May 1st, or was it May 1st? You can see oops, I'll bring that down for you guys. So had I gotten into this like May 1st or so, as opposed to maybe the smart contracts, and then, you know, you saw it come way up, you know, could have doubled up, or actually, what is this? That would have been tripled. So it's tripled so far in the month of May. So, like I haven't had a one of these ETH contracts that have tripled, and I don't know if we're necessarily going to see that. I mean, potentially the shrimp farm game has a lot of potential to do that, because like it's only been 2 days and I've made my money back already. Now a little bit of that is from like affiliates and whatnot. Like I think I've made a little bit, so probably made maybe like a half an ETH or so from people, you know, investing using my link, but not a whole lot. And I don't get a whole lot from that. Most of it is just basically from you know, the ETH that I have in that, and then kind of like compounding and whatnot. But the altcoin market is kind of another one that I've put a little bit on hold, just because there's been so much kind of happening so fast within this space. And so I think one of the things I'm kind of looking at doing is taking a little bit of a step back from some of these smart contract games a little bit, just kind of riding with a little bit in there and getting a little bit more into trading altcoins, because I've gotten away from that a little bit, and I want to get back into it. Got to get my computer set up. Part of it's just kind of been the move, so a lot of it's timing, but like, you know, I don't have like someone to kind of, you know, like a you know, a bachelor here, you know, with where I'm staying at. Like I'm gonna it's cheap to hire. Like I'm gonna hire somebody to clean, help me do my laundry. I'm looking into food services and getting a lot of that stuff, so I can kind of just focus on this. And, you know, because I've been spending too much time with some of that stuff. but yeah, it's cheap here to hire help, and also, you know, it's cheap to hire some of the developers. So like that's kind of one of the things I want to do. I want to free up some of my time, and then I want to focus a little bit more on the altcoins and some of these things, and also networking with some people here to for the month of June. I want to get more into programming and coding and working with developers and doing more reviews and things like that. So I think for the month of June, I'm going to kind of focus a little bit more on that. So we'll see. I mean, the crypto space changes a lot. I feel like I'm missing out too on the altcoins, but I think the time is better spent on building a sustainable crypto business. I have a game company, if you haven't figured it out. No, I'll have to take a look at that. Every contract based on P3D is broken because of the linear price curve, which favors whales. That includes POTJ. Yeah, and the whales essentially are, you know, a lot of the times are people that got in early. I mean, there's a few people that put in a ton of ETH, you know, later or so and became whales. But even the whales in like something like proof of weak hands are not making that much money. Like you just saw Time is Crypto. He put out a video. I'm not sure if he got out completely. I have to maybe rewatch that video. But he basically was saying that he pretty much got out of proof of weak hands and is getting more into trading altcoins, and he's going to be doing some videos and things like that. And I think that's kind of an interesting one. You had a guy that was like a major whale holder, and you know, I mean, he was near the top and was making hardly anything, you know, on dividends, and so he just, you know, he got out. So I think I'm gonna maybe pull back a little bit, like maybe, but I don't, you know, I've been holding, you know, where I'm at for a long time. You know, I've been just kind of, you know, it's been giving me a steady little bit amount of ETH, and so I don't know, like, I feel like it maybe it's bottoming out. I'm really curious to see what happens with the FOMO 3D project. I think that's, you know, one of the main reasons I'm still in it. Yeah, CG Now is easily the best one. That's the one that's been performing the best for me. You know, I'm, I guess, technically a whale. Like I'm third now on the list. You know, but with like, you know, 4,000 tokens. But yeah, like let's see here. I've made like almost 3 ETH, and I put in 1 ETH, and I've made 2.8 ETH so far. And I still have, you know, my coins that are in there. So potentially I like, you know, somewhere between 3 or 4x in that contract. So the prices are really low. It's continuing to come down, but like even with a small amount of volume in that contract, if you're holding a little bit, like you can do pretty well. I think Revolution is going to pull a Halo 3D. Yeah, Halo 3D was one. Like I'm in their Discord, and there was, you know, I know like some of my friends were getting into it, and I didn't get into it, and I heard there was a lot of problems. I didn't really do a whole lot of research as to, you know, why that was, or I don't know really enough about it. I know that I think it was like you kind of were able to buy in or something early before it launched, and I think there was like something like 250 or 300 ETH in that contract, and now, I mean, it's still pretty high on DApp Radar, but like the ETH balance has come down. So it's like 183, 146 active users, 11 in volume. But yeah, it's come up a little bit. Whalebots got in. That's gonna be kind of a killer in the space. I'm kind of learning, and it's also something that I need to learn more about. So I think the timing is actually pretty good for me. I kind of, you know, maybe gonna step back a little bit, like not too much, but I want to get more into to learning more about this, because I think that it really kind of started to this space really kind of started to come into existence and really started to get popular in April and now like early May. And now you're kind of seeing like, you know, developers and programmers kind of get into it and maybe manipulate it for their own benefit. That's, you know, I'm still kind of looking at that with like, you know, some of the transactions that I've had. Like for instance, every time I'm withdrawing from these crypto idle games, I noticed that there's a little bit that comes out. It looks like it's like, you know, it's going to the developer or something. So what happens in these is a lot of times that the only guy that makes out the best is the developers, you know, behind the system that are kind of doing this. Oh, there goes my battery. So the developers can do really well in these games, and I think that's why you're seeing so many prop up with just, you know, they're all, you know, basically clones, and you can put your address and plug your address in there, and if you get people to come in and invest, like you can do pretty well. So going into Revolution tomorrow. Comment on POTJ. Let's take a look at POTJ. So I got out. I lost a little bit. You know, I put in like half an ETH, and what did I end up making back? I put in half an ETH, and I was able to get basically, I made like 0.28, and that includes what I, you know, the like basically the investment. So all of the dividend earnings that I had, and including like when I cashed out, 0.23 of that was when I cashed out. So, you know, I lost basically 0.22 like ETH, almost a quarter ETH by getting in. So I lost about half. So like, you know, but I was only in, like you can see here, I wasn't in that long. And I was really hesitant to get in. I kind of mentioned that on my streams. I felt like I was kind of buying at the top, and that's pretty much what happened. But yeah, like I was getting a little bit in dividend returns, and then I cashed out. One ETH max makes it easier for bot and harder for humans to get a lot of ETH in. You might want to rethink that. Well, yeah. The bots is something I'm you know, definitely getting more interested in. There's a lot of, you know, people kind of talking about it. Like if you're using these multiple free accounts and you're draining Ether from the contract, I mean, at a certain point you get to where, you know, you're burning your own money in the process because of, you know, the gas and the returns, where it essentially kind of evens out. And I think that's when we might see like the daily active users start to decrease if we're seeing some of those bots not getting in the system on a daily basis. But yeah, but it's kind of screwing up, you know, this initial growth in some of these contracts. But now that like the free accounts are, you know, barely anything, I think we might start to see that go away, but only time will tell. Yeah, POTJ was designed to only really get profit from token price going up. Dividends were terrible. Luckily, I managed to at least double my ETH in that. Yeah, I mean, some people made out pretty well. Like I have a couple people that messaged me that got in. They got in early in that one. I mean, really, like I was considering it, but like when I think I was watching like one of Craig's videos, and Trevon was on there, and he basically was saying like he knew that space was dead or dying once they came out with Proof of Devon James, and so I was like, okay, well, he's not going to promote that, you know, like you know he's. You know, but then like it was at like 10 ETH in the contract. Then he decided to get in and promote it, and it just exploded in value, and that's really all because of his following. So I don't know the whole story on that. I mean, there was kind of like rumors and things. I mean, potentially, you know, there may have been shenanigans going on to kind of lower the price, so you kind of get some people in that could basically become whales, and then, you know, promoting it kind of inflated the price, you know, to a point where a lot of people were able to, you know, do pretty well. So unfortunately I didn't though. All right, guys, this has been a little bit longer than I wanted to go. So, but I appreciate you guys staying on. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you guys are looking into, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.